Hello, hello. Perfect. All right, team. Thank you guys for staying. I mean, I think everyone pretty much stayed. I know some of you guys may have to leave in the middle, which is awesome. You guys just being here is really cool, honestly. Um, so the past couple of weeks, you guys may have been in my classes and started hearing me talk about things, right? Just kind of some intentional things about the direction of the gym, the way we do things, and that will be happening forever and ever, which is uh, something that I actually hold like near and dear to my heart because intention is everything. If you don't know why you're doing something, what's the point in doing something? And so having that guiding kind of the thing that's steering our ship is going to be cool for me to share with you guys, and I hope that you guys find value in it. Some people may not, but I'm still going to share those things, and this is one of those things. This is just a little bit deeper than I can go in 4 to 5 minutes in class. If you were in my class yesterday, we went over the specifics of Fran and why we do Fran, because it is important. And it is a scary workout because a lot of the athletes that had done Fran before, I told them the intention. They were like, I wasn't nervous before, now I'm nervous. But it's good to have that intention of being like, oh, this is why we do this, and this is how this should feel. And this is one of those things. And so thank you guys for coming. I hope that you guys get something out of this. If you have questions mid-talk, ask them. If you're curious and you're like, why is he saying that thing because I don't think that's right, ask that. I'd love to be sharpened, and I love to have a growth mindset of like, hey, these are the things that I learned, and this is why I'm telling you these things. The last 5 years, COVID has been terrible in the sense of what it cost us, but it's been awesome because people are starting to think for themselves, which is really cool. And this is kind of what this was born out of. And so, as you guys can see, we're going to be talking about eating, kind of a 1,000-foot view of like eating in like our metabolic health. 10,000-foot view is, hey, eat well, right? Like everyone knows that everyone's eat well, and that's pretty much like it. That 10,000-foot view. This is we're going to go into the weeds a little bit, but we're not going to go like 1-foot view of like in the weeds, which we can at a later date or one-on-one. But this is going to be just a little bit more all-encompassing. And so we're going to be exploring how what we eat affects more than we have been told. So we will actually start with the what and the why. This first little nugget, the 5-factor health approach, is the intention of the gym. It is the purpose of the gym. It is why I make decisions, how I make them, why I make them now. And this was actually kind of born, funny enough, in August of last year. Aaron said, hey, have you heard this podcast with Callie and Casey Means? No, I had not heard it. He showed me this podcast with this brother and sister, Callie and Casey Means, that have been doing awesome work. Just a very broad view on them. One of them was a very prestigious surgeon that dealt with like a centimeter in the ear, so she was very specialized, and the other was a lobbyist in Congress. And both of them were starting to see things in their fields that just didn't add up. Like, why is Coke funding health initiatives? And why am I fixing the same person 10 times? Like, she's not getting fixed. I see her in here all the time. And so I started asking questions of like, why are people not getting healthy? And why are these big companies that we know are not for us funding things that are supposed to be for us, funding our health? And so listening to that podcast really just kind of shifted something in my heart. And it's like, I love the gym and we do the training part well, and we will continue to try to push that forward. But we were missing something else, and it really was the health aspect. And that's kind of what this is born out of. And so it's funny that Aaron's here because I was like, hey, Aaron kind of snowballed the whole thing. And so that goes into the intention of 5-factor health and the approach that brings into everything we do. Some of you guys may have heard this. Some of you guys, this may be new, but our guiding light and our purpose really boils down to 5 things. The first thing is what happens when you signed up for membership, been here for a lot of years. The reason you walk through the doors and the reason you guys are here is we train. Like, that's our hour, right? And that's sometimes we do open gym and whatnot, but you guys are here to train. That's the main thing. And when we train, our intention for you is to come through these doors 5 or 6 days a week and work out at different relative intensities. Yesterday we did Fran. That was a 9 or a 10 out of 10 if you heard my talk. We don't do that often. We usually operate within the bounds of doing a 1 out of 10 workout, go for a walk. To an 8, that's like the intervals where you're like, okay, that was hard 3 minutes. I get to rest for 3 minutes. I can recover a little bit, and then I'm going to go hard again. But at the end of the day, you're like, man, that was a good one. And then you leave and you feel fine. The 9s and the 10s are something we don't do often. And if we were to do them often, you would not be able to come in here 5 or 6 days a week and train. But they are important because we do need to build threshold and we do need to focus on developing power. But the main thing is walking in 5 or 6 days a week. If you can do that, whatever goals that you individually have in health and in the fitness realm of getting stronger, building a resilient bones will happen if you show up 5 or 6 days a week. If you show up 2-3 days a week, it will not. And most of you guys here are the people that do show up 5 or 6 days a week, which is awesome. But if you're watching, tell your friends, you need to be in the gym. If this is part of your life, you have to be. So that's the first one, the first factor. The second one is today, and I'm not going to go too in depth, but eat real, single ingredient food. I'm just going to put one. Eat the thing, right? Eat the apple. That's a single ingredient food. You look at a nutrition label, they don't have one because it is the thing. The closer we can get to one ingredient, the better. And you guys will obviously hear more about that in a second. The second one, which some people looked at me like I was crazy, is sleep. Sleep as close to 7 to 8 hours of good quality sleep as possible. Every hour under 7 hours of sleep that you get, you raise your all-cause mortality by 6%. That means if I sleep for 6 hours and Cameron sleeps for 7, I'm 6 more times likely to die than he is in the long run. That's an average. But like if you continue to only get 6, 5, 4 hours of sleep, you're going to probably die faster than the person next to you in some sense because sleep is massive. So we need to be striving for that. There's a ton that goes into that, and we will have challenges and kind of information that goes along with that later in the year. Same with this. We'll talk about this more in depth later in the year. But these 3 things are the things that are massive, and they're kind of tangible. The last 2 things, and I kind of said something about this earlier, think. I want to say be curious, not judgmental, meaning just ask questions to me, to the person beside you, to the people at work, to your family, to your friends. It's cool to get different views. It's cool to ask questions, not with the intention of being like, I'm trying to prove that person wrong because of my views, but it's like, why are they thinking that way? If we can live a life that's curious and not judgmental and ask questions and get sharpened, man, oh man, we're going to be an asset to society. And that's what we want to be, not the person that's like, that person's a jerk. The cool thing is at CrossFit Ammo, pretty much everyone is an asset. Like, I say pretty much. I don't really think we have members here that suck. Like, people here don't suck. They really don't. Like, everyone's here to get better at the fitness thing, but you've realized, like, they're curious about a lot of things. So ask the questions out there, too, because man, oh man, it's really cool. And last but not least is connect with yourself, with others, with nature. With yourself, have some quiet time, go for a walk. 45 minutes of walking will cure a lot of your problems that you have in your head. It's a right-left brain thing. So you continue to walk. If you have a problem, 45 minutes later, you're going to be like, wow, I was just looking at the trees. I feel a lot better. Connect with others. You guys do that well here. But like, we are beings that are created for fellowship. Go hang out with people versus yourself whenever you can. And then with nature, God made this earth for us to subdue it. But that is like, hey, go walk on the ground. Go outside, get vitamin D. The winter sucks because it's harder, but like be outside as much as you can because it's so beneficial. So these are the guiding principles of why I program the way I program or pick the programming or do the things. And so the 5-factor health approach is if you like, why are they doing this? It's probably somewhere in here. And this is going to pop up forever now. This is going to pop up. You're going to see this a lot. And this is why we do what we do. So the aim of this talk is obviously talk about the eat the real food. And why should we be? Because I look freaking jacked. Not me, but like, you're like, I look great. I look great. But there are consequences if we're not choosing the right choice more often than not. You got to live your life, and we'll talk about that. But there are consequences that you may not see now. You will reap what you sow. You will. And that's not a fun thing to say, but it is the truth. And so next thing we'll talk about is the sick, well, fit continuum, and that will lead into the talk about the food. So this continuum was made very popular by Greg Glassman, who is the creator of CrossFit. So the fit continuum, it looks like this, just a half circle, and it describes every individual at some point. You are somewhere on this graph. These things are factored in by everyday things that you associate with health, right? Blood pressure, muscle mass, bone density, can I lift my body weight, squatting, deadlifting, blah, blah, blah. All those things are just factors on this. Our goal when you walk in here, and the fact that like CrossFit was created, is to get everyone here. Most people, when they walk through the door, probably somewhere in this range. We're just like, yeah, I go for walks, I do the things. When you train and are intentional with how you do a lot of these things, we start to make our way over here. It's important to be on the fit side or as close to this as you can be, because when you get sick, and you will get sick, it may be the flu, it may be something worse, we hope not, you're going to start moving towards the other end. The bigger that we can make this buffer by making good decisions, the more we have that kind of built-in insulation. If you are here and you get sick for 2 weeks, you'll probably be here, still really close to fit. If you walk in the door, second week in the gym for working out, and you're about here and you get sick for 2 weeks, you're probably moving pretty close to here. And that sick, once you get here, that is death. We don't want to be there. Most people walking around are somewhere in here. They don't have any insulation. And every time they get sick and every time they make the poor choices, they move closer and closer on that pendulum. They have no insulation. And so our job as trainers and people that care for people is to try to get people here, because we want you to have that insulation. We want you guys to be fit, because when you get sick, and you will get sick, whether it's a little thing or a big thing, you're going to have a lot of time to be okay and recover, because your body's going to be resilient. That being said, and this is a caveat I have to say, we'll think of the most fit person you know. I would say Rich Froning or Matt Fraser or Tia Claire Toomey. You can still die. If you get into an accident, like, you can be fit and it would happen. So obviously, like, this is just stuff that is preventable. You're just not Superman. So we are striving to get you there. We want you guys to be fit so you can build resilience, and whenever you go out into the world, you're okay when you get sick or when something happens. And this is what you want your family to be, right? This is the reason that you try to encourage your friends and family to do CrossFit or to do whatever, is because you may not think of the continuum, but you're like, I just want you to be healthy. And that's why we, as the gym owners and the coaches, want to put you there so you can have that resilience. So we'll talk and kind of get into the types of food. So there are 3 types of food that we eat. Real is the single ingredient, right? And you guys can kind of see that I've written some notes and I have some more on my paper. But when we think of real food, we think of some processing, but it's processing that's not going to change it. You may wash it, you may do these things, roasting, but no food, part of the food has been stripped away, concentrated, or added to. Your single ingredient. I'm eating the fruit, I'm eating the one thing, I'm eating the meat, I'm eating the eggs, I'm eating the whatever it is. It's a natural herb or spice. That is what we're striving to eat, because it is natural. When we think of the things that are in real foods, we think of the things that honestly power the cells, and that is kind of the reason for this talk. We get micronutrients and antioxidants, the 2 pieces that help our cells function properly, repair, and cover the holes when we do have those holes. We get omega-3s. They help with the cell structure, and they help with anti-inflammatory pathways in our body. You have 2 omegas, omega-3 and omega-6s, that are very important. Omega-3s are what you want. Omega-6s is what we get in our diet mostly when we eat processed and ultra-processed foods. The American diet has a ratio, for the most part, and when I say for the most part, probably not applying to a lot of us. In some sense it may be, but the American diet has a ratio of 20 to 1 more omega-6s than omega-3s. Omega-6s are highly inflammatory. When you wake up and you're like, everything hurts, you're probably having some sort of inflammation attack. I don't know if it's because of that, but the inflammation is caused in part because of the things that we eat are more are higher in omega-6s than omega-3s. When you eat the fishes and the good healthy nuts and seeds, you get the omega-3s, and we want to balance that out. If you can be a 1-to-1, because omega-6s do serve a purpose, we're on track, but we don't want to be 20-to-1. And then the real food also contains fiber. Fiber is massive. We have a gut microbiome that is more important than you can ever know. It obviously, like when your tummy doesn't feel good, you're like, oh, this sucks. Life kind of sucks right now. But it also has a very, very delicate and strong connection with your head. What you eat is going to dictate how you think, whether you want to admit that or not. When you eat real food, you are generally a happy person. And it may be subtle, but it is real. And so when you're able to eat fiber, it does regulate that gut microbiome. It also helps improve insulin and glucose levels, which are good in regulating our blood sugar. Helps our appetite and regulate hunger, which is massive because sometimes we're like, I just want the thing. I want the candy, the sugar, because most Americans just don't have a good level of fiber in them. Most people are eating less than 20 grams. You need 50 to 60 usually. That's not good, especially if we don't eat the foods that have fiber in them. And then lastly is protein. That's why we're here, right? Want to build those muscles, get jacked. And the protein obviously comes from real food. You can get it from fake places, but real protein is going to provide you with all the essential amino acids that you would need to build muscle. And so that's the stuff that we know. That's what they always say to eat, and that's kind of known. It's the other two that is where we have the problems. So there are 19,000, this is a rough estimate, but 19,000 new foods created every single year. That sounds like a trick statement, like there's no new foods, exactly. But there are 19,000 different things in stores that are masquerading as new foods. Whether it's processed or ultra-processed, it's not real, and we should not be putting it in our body because that's just not how we were made. Not what we were made to eat. So processed food is defined as foods that have a little bit of added things. The ingredients may be less than 10, but you may not be able to pronounce some of the things that you see on the ingredients, and it may be a couple. It may be like, bacon with added salt, but there is a chemical process that has to take place to make it with the added salt. And so then it becomes processed. And the processed is bad because they're unbalanced, as you can see here. When you add the salt that isn't natural salt, or it's too much salt, things just start to get out of whack, and we don't want to be there. So this big thing with processed foods is that it includes seed oils, which is it's kind of a hot button topic nowadays. We see it in the news, seed oils. Like, why are they bad? So seed oils go through processing that include chemical solvents that break down whatever the thing is, whether it's canola, corn, soybeans, soybean, grapeseed, whatever the seed oil is. When it's gone and heated over 150 degrees and it is used, where is that? I have a note in here. So seed oils have been chemically heated over 150 degrees, bleached, de-waxed sometimes multiple times, versus an avocado oil or an olive oil when it's squished. If you are doing something unnatural to the thing, probably should not be putting it in our body. If you're squishing the thing, olive oil's in the Bible, if you're squishing it with your feet, whatever, however they do it now, but it's a very minimally processed thing, we should probably be putting that thing in our body. If anything has been de-waxed and you're eating it or drinking it or putting it as a substitute or an additive in your food, probably shouldn't be doing it. The seed oils contain massive amounts of omega-6s, and that's where the 20-to-1 comes from. When you are eating things that include these things in them, they are inflaming your body more than you'll ever know, because it just isn't everything, honestly. Please look at the label. Make the best choice that you can, but just start looking. I don't care if you change your food now. The awareness is massive. So start looking at the label and thinking, oh, wow, this thing is causing inflammation in my body. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then ultra-processed foods, which is the worst possible thing that you could eat. If you are like, this is a paragraph, like, holy crap, and you're reading the ingredient list and if you can't pronounce more than one and you're just going down the list, we're in a tough spot. please try to put it down and pick something else, something that you can read. Created in factories, combine various extracted synthetic ingredients. Red Dye 40, which has links to a crap ton of neurological deficiencies in ourselves and children. These things are just not good for you. Frankenfoods. It's cool that we have someone that's going to be kind of taking a hard look at these, like in government now, but it's still like it's just not good. So you guys can see, and you probably know, sports drinks, packaged bread, cereal bars, processed cheeses, the list goes on and on. It's everywhere, y'all. The ultra processed foods, that's how we get to this end of the spectrum very, very, very quickly. Thankfully, we have a buffer, but sometimes it does pain my heart when people in here and they're like, I'm just doing the fitness program so I can eat how I want. There is some merit to that, but it's going to catch up to you. And so making the right choices is just going to be so much better in the long run. So like, why? Like, okay, cool, you showed me these things and you kind of gave me some information about like what the different things are and omega-6s, like why? So when we think about the cost of what the other two do to us, we kind of break it into three groups. And this is the 1,000-foot view. Like, there's so much more that goes into this, and I want to try to keep this as concise as I can. But mitochondrial dysfunction, chronic inflammation, and oxidative stress are the things that the processed and the ultra-processed foods cause. So, mitochondrial dysfunction. Your cells have to be powered by energy. If you remember back to 6th grade, 5th grade, something called mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It makes everything go. Without cell production, you would literally just shrink. There are 90 million tons of processes that go on in your body and are powered by mitochondria every single day. Pounds of energy. Like, that's a weird thing to think about, but like, you need to have properly functioning cells to live life. And when we start to mess with that balance, that is when we get into this mitochondrial dysfunction, and it will cause problems at some point if we are on the wrong side of the scales. And so it's defined when cells can't make energy properly because they are overburdened with either A, too much food, too much crap, or B, underfueled. I'm not eating enough of the good things or of the things in general. That it would be a caloric deficit. That has a cost too. Their energy factories, or the mitochondria, are overtaxed and damaged, which lead to less energy production and more fat stored inside cells, which blocks regular function. Your body is awesome. Heard Austin say it, like, it adapts. There is some sort of dysfunction going on every single second of the day. But our goal is to make sure we limit that as much as possible. Downstream, when we consistently underfuel or oversaturate, being gluttonous, eating too much, there's a cost to it. The second thing it leads to is chronic inflammation. This happens when the mitochondrial dysfunction and low energy production, because we don't have enough or we have so much that they just cannot function the right way, are perceived as threats. So the body revs up a fighting response, immune response, T cells, and your body starts to attack itself because it's like, that's not right. The cell's not doing what it's supposed to do because it's oversaturated or underfueled, whatever that looks like. Your body will start to attack itself, and it will show up as inflammation. Man, everything hurts. Everything hurts, and I don't know why. This response becomes chronic because the perceived threat doesn't go away unless the environment changes, unless I eat the real foods at some point. Because if you consistently give it the stuff that's not real, your body's not going to process the not real things over time. Like, it will try to figure it out, but at some point it's just not going to work. It just will not. And then lastly is oxidative stress. The cells create damaging reactive waste in the form of free radicals. I know in 6th grade, I heard that and I was like, that sounds cool. I did not know what that meant until recently. These things, we're trying to process all the junk from being thrown, all the junk that's being thrown at them from the environment and from damaged mitochondria. Free radicals then cause damage to other cells. So they're just bad, essentially, particles in your body that are just waste products, and they start to poke holes in other cells and just cause more dysfunction. And so you will probably go through all three of these things if you are eating poorly, and it just compounds. And so our bodies are amazing, like Austin said, and we kind of know that because we do amazing things in here. And a lot of people get away with life because they look good and they feel good, but they probably don't really feel good. I heard a really cool thing recently, and it kind of plays into this. Your calories will let you know how much you weigh. Your macros will determine how you look with your weight, but your micronutrients will determine how you feel. If you can get your macros and micros in check, you're going to look and feel great. The calories are one thing. This I dealt with, not dealt, let me rephrase that. I had the pleasure of being Rosemary's coach, nutrition coach, for a year. And I told her a lot. The scale is a liar. The scale is a liar. It always will be. So really the calories don't matter. It just matters what is the quality of food that we're putting in our body. And so, like I said, your body is amazing. That's the third time I've said it, because it can mask a lot of these things. And you can be like, I look good. I'm PRing my Fran time. Like, I'm chugging along. But if the quality of food is the wrong two, it's the processed and the ultra processed foods, you're going to pay. I promise you. And that's like the part where I say that and I get chills, because that's what happens to a lot of people. They eat the things, we'll say at worst 60-40. I eat 60, 50% okay things. I eat 60, 40, 50% bad things. You will pay for those actions. I promise you. And that's not a fun thing to say, but there are so many stories littered with people that lived a healthy life and did a lot of the good things. And one day they went to the doctor and developed some sort of metabolic condition, chronic pain, sinus infection, migraines, autoimmune conditions, type 2 diabetes, whatever that is. And then they were prescribed medicine. And they're like, you're pretty healthy. Take this, it'll fix it, and then go on your way. And then those things started to compound because nothing changed. They didn't make a lasting change, and they didn't start to eat real food. They were just given something that masked the problem, and they kept doing exactly what they were doing. And like I said, you're going to pay for whatever you do, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. If you pay for the good thing, it's like, I feel great and I live a life that I feel really good about. Everything really just feels like it's functioning well. Or I look okay. I had these medications prescribed by my doctor, and they said it's going to be fine. The more we push into that, I'm just going to eat what I want, and these things start to pop up, these chronic pains, these chronic fatigue, these conditions that we think are treatable by medicine, and we just kind of push off to the side. Not saying that that's what we do, but you probably know people that are prescribed a lot of things. The more we start to move towards the metabolic conditions, the title of the talk that I've been talking about for a while, which is the heart disease, the cancer, the stroke, the Alzheimer's, the type 2 diabetes, et cetera, on and on and on. The things that you're like, it could be a death sentence, right? Like if you have someone that has had that and it has unfortunately passed away, you're like, what could I have done? What could they have done different? I'm not saying that food's going to cure it all, but I can promise you that food is going to help a ton. There are people that have genetic predispositions to things that their families kind of pass down to them. And it is unfortunate sometimes that people have to go through that. But I promise you, if you eat poorly, those things are going to pop up really fast, and that's going to be the future of whoever the individual is. Versus we can figure out how to eat well and train well and sleep well, and we can push past genetics. That is a thing, and make a new future. Or we can fix the things that have been happening, namely with, or starting with the food, because that's the easiest thing. Because you eat more than you train, you sleep once, I guess the hours are long, but like the eating part is a conscious decision that we consistently make and that we can have control over. So this is the I got chills. I don't want to say this to people, but this is the truth. You put the processed and ultra processed foods in your body, you're going to have to pay at some point. That being said, we are humans. Oh, yeah, we'll do that one. Here's some data. There's a lot of words, but this is just some of the things. Every additional sugary drink consumed per day, you have a 20 22% more likelihood of developing type 2 diabetes. How high caloric diets, if you are eating these processed foods, fast foods, packaged snacks, etc., 50% higher risk. If you want to take a picture of this, you can. I'm not going to go through all the stats. The stats are numerous. They're out there. There's a cost to it, like I've been saying. The data will support it, I promise you. And we know we need to eat real foods. So what to do about it? I tell people 80-20 is a great way to live. There are things that we've eaten, sugary snacks, whatever the thing is that may be processed or ultra processed that you're like, I can't go without that. That's fine. Like, your body is resilient. It's going to be great. If you can get close to an 80-20 life of like, I enjoy my alcohol, I enjoy my whatever, 80% of the time you're eating really well, as close to single ingredient foods, and the 20% is like, I don't really care. I promise you, you are going to live a life well lived, and you're going to feel pretty darn good. You'll have those bouts of like, oh, I know I ate something bad because I don't feel great, but you're going to have such an amazing buffer, especially with the training and the sleeping well. Fight to eat single ingredient foods. These markers right here, these 5, if you want to take a picture of these are massive. These are the things that are the indicators of, am I on the way to some sort of metabolic disease? So that is fasting glucose, your waistline, your HDL cholesterol, your triglyceride levels, and your blood pressure. These are things that you can get from your natural checkup. These are the normal ranges. Like, this is what the standard in the industry says. Like, this is where you should be. I can tell you, I was wearing a glucose monitor, a CGM. Like, if you know Bailey, like, she has them, and I was just experimenting on myself. The standard is fasting glucose of around 100. It says higher, but like around 100. I felt like crap at 100. I met an individual playing a game of poker a month ago, and he told me that his endocrinologists were telling him, like, it's okay to be at 140. Like, that's okay. That's terrible. If that is what people are saying, and this is, like, I was in 100, and I was like, I feel crappy, because it was around Christmas time, and I was just eating whatever I was eating. That's not okay. The normal ranges, the standards, what they're saying is okay, it's really not. This will keep you okay. This is where we want to be. The fasting glucose level of 70 to 80, your waistline around there, these numbers, this is where we want to be. So if you take anything from today, be like, I need to go get a checkup. I want to see where I am. And I want to know if I'm around these numbers, below these numbers, at these numbers, because this is going to be a pretty good indication of, am I developing something, or I'm freaking healthy. And the staggering fact is that roughly 93% of Americans are in danger of at least one of these markers. That's not okay. Like, obviously, we want to be 5 for 5 or 0 for 5, whichever way you want to think about it. But please know these. And then lastly, it's just kind of that 5-factor life. If you can stay along those lines, man, that's awesome. Like, you're going to feel great, have a life well lived. You'll have fun with us. You'll have fun out there. You'll be able to tell people to drink the Kool-Aid, because, like, this is going to get us to a really healthy spot in our lives. And a lot of us do that. But this is just my prescription. And these are the ways that I've found that we can get there. I do want to preface this by saying, like, obviously this talk is about nutrition and eating well. But eating well is not going to fix everything, and I understand that. It is just a thing that you can control very easily. It's not an easy thing to do. The things that we've been given and do eat have a chemical reaction, and we have an addiction to them. And so I know, just being like, Andre had that talk, so it's time to change. It's just not that easy, and I understand that. But the small choices that you can make day by day, eating the apple, eating the real thing, even if it's just replacing one thing at a time every other week or every week, it will make a difference at some point. And then I also know that there are other environmental factors. There are things out there that you cannot control that will affect your health. Pesticides, pollution, like, there's just stuff out there, genetic predisposition. I understand that people come in with their baggage and their crap and things that they can't change, but you can change this, and this will help. God made us awesome to heal ourselves, and that starts with the food, the natural food. Whether you believe in God or don't, like, it is real. The real food will help. I promise you, because it is natural for a reason. And so that is my eat talk. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Like I said in the beginning, if you have questions, ask in the general form. Like, I'm sure people may have the same questions. If you have a question later on, if you're like, hey, I don't agree with that, come talk to me. Like, I would love to have a respectful conversation about anything, whether it's eating or sleeping or blah, 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 whatever it is, because then I get to grow, because I don't know everything, and I never will. But it is fun to kind of talk and get challenged and learning new things. So thanks for hanging out, crew. Any questions? You can push that, yeah. What you got?